In 7 days, Google and Microsoft launched 150 new AI features between them at the two biggest AI conferences of the entire year. Microsoft alone mentioned agents 300 times in just a few days. And while both companies are clearly obsessed with AI, they've both taken different approaches that's been highlighted quite clearly at their conference. Google has gone all in when it comes to interweaving AI into consumer products, and Microsoft has painted a picture of an open agentic web that takes over the world of work. In today's episode, I'm going to explore what I think is the more interesting parts of their announcements and what it means for the future direction of AI. This is In the Loop with Jack Horton. I hope you enjoyed the show. For today's episode, I'm going to try and do my best to do a roundup of all the big announcements that happened at the conference. As I said, there's over 150 of them, so I don't want to go through all of them. And I'm going to try and cherry pick what I think are the more interesting parts of the announcements and really what it means for the future direction of AI over the next probably 3, 6, and 9 months. So I'm going to start with Microsoft because actually I think their Build conference, that's their big developer conference of the year, was actually more interesting because they painted this new picture, which they call the frontier firm. So this is an organization that embeds AI intelligence from the ground up, where humans suddenly have teams of agents around them and everyone becomes an agent manager. And we basically scrap traditional organizational charts and where people have to become AI bosses. And Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said that they're going to go much further than just provide case studies to customers about what this could look like for them. And they're actually aiming to have 50% of all code written by AI alone within the next year. To put that in perspective, they've got 20 to 30% of all code now written by AI. And they've just announced a series of layoffs, so 3% of their entire workforce is being laid off, which equates to about 6,000 people. And to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if this is also them eating their own dog food and reinvesting some of that cash into trying to grow the business from an AI perspective. So Microsoft really is painting this picture of them being customer zero for all this same AI ideas that they're selling to enterprise. And the open agentic web is a key concept to that vision. And it basically took over the entire of the first day for Microsoft's conference. So what is the agentic web? At its core, it's a idea or a series of ideas that are not new. It's things that we've discussed on this podcast a number of times, but really the backing of Microsoft and creating a narrative around it is going to bring it all into being much faster. So this involves AI agents that interact with products and services on the internet, from booking appointments to collaborating with other agents to buying products from other agents on behalf of me or other people. And the open part is what is critical because Microsoft doesn't want to build this ecosystem that's closed. They want to have an interoperable, open standard ecosystem that allows any company to put their agents inside it, to collaborate, to buy things, and for their ecosystem or Microsoft ecosystem to facilitate all of this. I've said this before, these big companies really want to own everything when it comes to AI. And I think this is another core part of that strategy for Microsoft. And to make this vision a reality, they've introduced a number of important standards and components that I'll go through because none of them, again, are that new, but bringing them all together in a shared vision and bringing other companies on board is what's going to make this happen. So first, there's Model Context Protocol, so MCP, which is that universal USB-C connector between agents and other platforms. So it lets agents use other systems to share data. So my agent can speak to Amazon and make an order, for example. Now, I did a deep dive into MCP not long ago, so I recommend go listen to that. But their support for this is a huge leap forward. Second, we've got agent-to-agent protocol. This is another open protocol that allows agents from different vendors or ecosystems collaborate directly. So imagine your Microsoft-based agent working with Google's agent or the Amazon agent without any compatibility issues. Again, this is about allowing people like Mindset and others that are building technology in this space to all work together and connect with each other's ecosystems. Again, I did an entire episode in A2A protocol, so I recommend go listen to that if you want to learn. And what's key about all of this is they're actively supporting these protocols and Protocols are only successful if you listen to those episodes when lots and lots of different people all use them, bake them into their strategies, their products, and how they build things. And then we turn to all the infrastructure and the technology support that Microsoft have now launched to make those protocols a reality. Again, they're positioning themselves as a neutral vendor that allows people to work together in a shared ecosystem. So they're upgrading their Copilot Studio for multi-agent systems. So that's enabling people to start thinking about teams of agents. They're going to launch the Azure AI Foundry, which is basically a service to monitor agents. And then they're launching what they call Agent ID. So this is like an identity management system for agents. So just like a human employee has, permissions and roles and what those permission and roles mean for access of information within a company, that's what that Agent ID system is going to allow. These tools will form the backbone of that vision for the open agentic web. Again, nothing new. We've discussed all of them in this podcast, but Microsoft support makes all of this really critical to happen. A part of their vision for the open agentic web is called the NL Web Initiative. Now, this is short for Natural Language Web. Now, the NL Web wants to make websites more agent-friendly. I did discuss this a while ago in terms of multi-agent systems and what they are and the challenges of agents going shopping for me and accessing websites, for example. Because instead of what we now have, which is just human-readable web pages, this initiative is trying to make websites something that can expose certain functionality, data to agents. So through APIs and protocols. So basically it would make it really easy for websites to allow, say, Jack's agent to go buy tickets from another company's site. Because again, if the websites aren't agent friendly, an agent can't come and buy things. And companies like Shopify, Snowflake, and even some institutions like the Chicago Public Library are already on board, which again is quite interesting because, as I've said before, for these types of protocols and initiatives to work, they're collaborative. They require people to opt in and embed these ideas into how they build things. So that's the open agentic web. It's quite an interesting concept. Now, if I turn to the Google I/O conference, which is again their big developer conference, and these happen just days apart, what struck me about their conference was it told you a lot about the difference in strategies here. So Google is certainly the consumer AI strategy and Microsoft is the enterprise AI strategy. Because the Google conference had a huge amount of consumer focus. AI in search for everyone, AI features in Gmail, Photos, Android, shopping. Even a lot of its announcements when it pertains to developers were related to consumer products. So Android or Firebase for consumer apps. And Google's biggest splashy demos were always, again, in that consumer space. So like their AR glasses for translating speech in real time or their magic photo editor. Whereas, as I said, Microsoft's Build conference was very much on that enterprise and business use case. Now, what's very clear here is that Google really hasn't settled on a vision for the agentic web. And instead, they're kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall with different experiments, which makes sense. They're trying to test what resonates most with users. For example, one of these experiments is called Project Marina, which is an initiative to enable AI to control computer screens. So this is often called computer use agents. Again, nothing terribly new. Think of it as AI acting like a real user so it can click buttons, fill out forms on a website. And again, without human assistance there. They've also got agent mode launch, which basically uses model context protocol to allow users to, say, describe, plan my weekend trip, and the AI can then create and execute a plan, and then use MCP to access different platforms and websites to book you a, say, Airbnb or whatever it might be. And they've also got a lot of different experiments with AI search and shopping. For example, they've said that their Google AI overview, so anyone that's used Google these days would have probably spotted them, now serves over 1.5 billion people in over 200 countries, which technically makes Google Search one of the most used generative AI products in the entire world. And internal data from Google has showed that AI overviews have driven a 10% increase in search usage. So for them, they're trying to claim to Wall Street and to everyone around the world that AI is not going to cannibalize their big search market, which represents most of their revenue, but is actually going to make it bigger, faster, stronger. And they've now actually launched products specifically for AI. So there's a £200 a month license to use like Notebook LM, Gemini's best model, kind of like what OpenAI have been doing, which is actually one of the few big companies in the world to have actually done something like that. Most of them are hiding AI revenue inside other parts of their business. So it's really difficult to understand what people are paying for when it comes to AI versus their traditional normal business models. They've also launched new AI-driven search and shopping experience products. So they've got a conversational shopping assistant to help basically people refine their product searches. And they've even got virtual try-ons. So you can let customers, upload photos to see exactly what clothing would look like on them. Again, nothing terribly new, but they're throwing a lot of different experiments at the wall about what this open agentic web means for them. And they've even launched a new consumer hardware product. So they previewed their Android XR glasses built with Samsung, and they're working on something called Project Muhan, which is an AR VR headset. And they're going to be partnering with Warby Parker on all of this. So hopefully they've learned from their last experiment, which was their Google Glasses failure when they tried to build hardware themselves and realized we suck at this. And they're probably copying what Meta did by partnering with Ray-Ban as well. And if you've been listening to every episode, you might notice a bit of a trend that I'm hedging my bets, but I do wonder whether a mobile phone could be completely replaced over time by some form of glasses or AI technology. Because the phone certainly probably won't be the main consumer device forever. So to conclude, as I said, I think they're taking very different strategies, as you can tell with their different types of announcements. And don't get me wrong, there are some crossovers when it comes to developers. And there are some crossovers in a few other places. They're both huge companies launching a crazy amount of stuff. But there is a big, big separation here. Now, who's going to win? Who's going to be the best? Who knows? I hate to say it because I've never been a massive Microsoft fan, but I think Microsoft are making massive leaps when it comes to the enterprise side, and that's a particularly interesting space. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'm going to see you next week.